From navigating a history of disordered eating to feeling strong and present in her changing body, my guest today brings a refreshingly honest and grounded perspective on pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. She's a registered dietitian, one of the cool ones, lifelong fitness enthusiast, and a new mom who joins us to share her journey through an active pregnancy, labor induction with a sunny side up baby, and life as a brand new mama, all with humor, heart, and hard earned insight. I'm pregnancy focused chiropractor Dr. Elliot Berlin, and you're listening to the Informed Pregnancy Podcast. Brooke Glazer, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Hi.
Hi, good morning. And so, as your accent would prove, you're originally from Chicago.
I already gave it away in the
You
first sentence.
already gave it away, ma'am, new ma'am. Okay, so anyway, but you live in Los Angeles. What brought you here?
Curiosity and boredom. In 2008, I moved to LA thinking I would stay for a month, and I never left.
Oh, well, we're the lucky recipients of you.
Yes.
Registered dietitian. I said one of the cool ones because there are some who are very cool and some who are not, like everything else. I've not had the most exciting experiences, like energizing, enthusiasm, and motivating experiences. That's not, you come across as all of those things. So tell me about your career path.
Thank you. So, as a registered dietitian, I think when you say one of the cool ones, I think my philosophy is pretty cool because I take a non-diet approach to helping people achieve their nutrition goals. And so I'm an intuitive eating dietitian, and I really aim to help people heal their relationship with food and their body through education and really learning to listen to your body and trust your body so that you know that you can eat all foods and, really help people have food take up a more appropriate amount of space in their head.
Well, it's
So I
certainly
really
taking up more than an appropriate amount of space in my body. You're,
that too. And so
yeah.
by tuning into your body and really understanding and feeling your body signals and honoring your body signals and learning that you can trust your body and trust food, food begins to take up less space and less chatter in your brain.
So you're an RND, a registered non-dietitian.
Exactly.
I love it. Okay, new field. But how did you get into that?
So I actually struggled with an eating disorder when I was growing up, and I became a registered dietitian to help other people recover from their eating disorders as well. So I'm a registered dietitian and a certified eating disorder specialist.
Oh, interesting. Because you're an open book, can you tell me more about your eating disorder? Like, at what age did it manifest itself, and maybe what were the influences and how did it manifest?
So when I was in seventh grade, we moved to a new house and I started a new school. And I think I was nervous about being the new kid and felt that if I went on a diet and felt more comfortable in my body, that I would feel more comfortable socially as well. And I took the diet too far and ended up developing an eating disorder and anorexia. And there was a woman who was just this mentor to me, and she was an exercise physiologist. She was actually a friend of mine's mom, and she noticed that I was struggling, and she was someone that I led these exercise classes and confronted me that I was actually losing strength and no longer becoming stronger, and let me know that it might be because of my relationship with food and because of my relationship with her and her empowerment, I was able to recover and fully heal.
Wow, that's pretty cool that she recognized it and also did something about it in a meaningful way that got through to you. So this started when you were like 12 years old. How long did you have it before the remedy came along?
I think that the initial remedy came within a year or two when she confronted me and really helped me start to eat more. but I continued to eat really rigidly for many years and wouldn't say that I fully, truly recovered until many years later. So I think that I kind of lived with a subclinical eating disorder where I continued to worry about calories, worry about carbohydrates, worry about what I was eating, feel guilt or shame for eating certain foods. And it wasn't until many years later that I truly, truly healed my relationship with food and fully recovered from any food struggles.
Well, even as you say that, you definitely hit buzzwords like, I think I might have that. You know, some of those elements there. I think a lot of people listening will be like, do I have a very healthy relationship with food or don't I? And probably most of us can improve. And,
Yeah.
it's probably a spectrum, some better, some needing more help, but I bet we can
And
all
I
learn from you.
Thank you. I think it's really normalized a lot of the diet culture conversation that we all engage in socially and within ourselves. And so I think that it's so common for people to feel guilt or shame for eating certain foods, feel like they were quote unquote bad for the foods that they ate today, judging the foods that they eat, and then judging themselves for eating those foods. So I think so much of that is really normalized in our society and in our day-to-day conversations. And the truth is, it's not normal and it's not a way that you have to live. And so it really is worth it if you feel like you're struggling or if you feel like food is taking up too much space in your brain, to find someone and to talk about it.
That's really sound advice. Because I really want to talk about your pregnancy and your very cool birth experience. But before we get there, what would you say to a 12-year-old girl who realizes that she's probably on a bad path with food, but also feels driven to it, maybe for social reasons or peer pressure?
Well, I think that everyone is so different. And so, when I work with each 12-year-old is going to be so different. And so really needing to get to know the person and understand what their belief system is, the messaging that they're taught in their family about food, the modeling that they're shown in their family and in their lives around food. And so I take a really, really individualized approach. And I think part of what makes me cool, like you said, is my ability to connect with people. And I especially love working with young people. So I don't know exactly what I would say to any specific, any general 12-year-old, but really kind of tuning into and learning about their motivations and their motivations to get better to really help them start to make some changes. And I also think that we all get so much, I call it misinformation through social media and different news outlets right now. So I really, really want to empower people with evidence-based education and knowledge about food and nutrition, metabolism, our bodies, so that people have good science and can really take that to help them start to eat differently.
If you're the registered non-dietitian, then those platforms are definitely anti-social media.
There
Um,
are some good ones that talk about taking a non-diet approach and empower people and, to learn about intuitive eating, but a lot of them are filled with misinformation.
okay, now you're filled with a bundle of joy. We're going to take a little break, and when we get back, we're going to figure out all about your journey. We're going to learn all about your journey to pregnancy, childbirth, and motherhood. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We are talking to Brooke Glazer. Okay, so now you have a kid. It started with a partner. How'd you guys meet?
We met in middle school. So when I made that move and developed that eating disorder, I was this seventh grader, and my now husband, Michael, was in sixth grade, and we met in middle school.
Oh, wow. So he's been there through even segment one of the podcast.
Yes.
That was a while back. Did you stay together? Were you
No,
a thing or you just knew each other?
we just knew each other, and he thought that I was the cool, hot seventh grader. And our story is very cute and funny and inappropriate.
Oh,
And we
do
actually
tell.
We actually don't do anything traditionally. And so when we finally got together and got married, we officiated our own wedding for all of our family
Oh,
and friends.
wow.
Yeah, so we secretly got married in the rabbi's study on a Monday afternoon, super casual. And then we threw a big party and got up and said, surprise, we're already married, but we have our own version of a wedding or ceremony for all of you tonight.
Ah,
Who better to officiate than us? So here it goes. We're officially officiating our own wedding. And I
nice.
will send you the link because it's so, so cute and special. And it tells our entire story, which starts with him returning a bathing suit to my house from a friend's pool party and me answering the door completely naked.
Oh, is that something you do on the regular?
It's not something I don't do. I've always been inappropriate and, just see what rise I can get out of people. And so that is where our story starts. And it's just a cute, funny journey from there.
Well, at least he had something for you to put on. Okay, so many things going off in my head, but I'm gonna keep plowing through with this story. And also, by the way, on a totally different, weird, morbid sense, I don't know, you just triggered my idea that I want to officiate my own funeral.
That's a great idea. I'll speak
Maybe,
at your funeral too. I think you're
thank
great. I
you.
have a lot to say.
Yeah, oh, that's nice to hear. Yeah, maybe like with a video that I put in a vault somewhere.
I think that's a good idea.
Thank you for sparking that pregnancy. So, did you
Wait,
guys?
this doesn't have to be on anything, but lately I don't know why I've been thinking about my like Shiva, my death wishes, that sort of thing. And I said that I want when people get to my funeral or my Shiva, I want there to be valet so that people get there and they're like, wow, this is going to be such a nice Shiva. But
Okay.
the real reason is because once I'm gone, I don't want anyone getting their steps in while I'm not here. And then they're going to get inside and be like, wow, this is going to be so nice. There's valet. And all that I'm going to serve is Dasani or Aquafina water, the two worst waters, because
Oh,
anyone enjoying life, food, or even good water when I'm not here, it's basically like a spite Shiva because I don't want anyone happy when I'm gone.
I'm gonna just check off Dasani and Aquafina from our sponsor list, potential sponsor list. Certainly for episode 450, whatever this is. Um, Hey, that's great stuff. I think you should definitely. I love these observations that you have because, with comedy, you can shine light on darkness, and I think you should do a set in my next comedy showcase for parents.
Thank you. I'm in.
Amazing. So, kids, after the first naked encounter at the house, did you think about at some points after you officiated your wedding? That's where we were. Children, is this something you talked about?
Yeah, so Michael and I always knew that we wanted to have a family together and have kids. Also, when I did struggle with my eating disorder and stopped getting my period, that was a big motivation for me to get better because I had lost my period and that can jeopardize your chances of being able to conceive and carry a baby. It was really, really important to me to get better because I always knew I wanted to be a mom.
Well, that's probably soon after you got your period.
Yep.
So scary too. So you guys wanted to have kids, and was it a difficult process for you? Did it come easy?
We were really lucky because it came easy. I'm 39 now, and we got married last year. And so we knew that we wanted to start right away. And so we actually, when we went on our honeymoon to Japan, came home and it turned out that I was pregnant. And we went to see my doctor, Dr. Surden at Cedars, who we love, and got there. And Michael and I were like, oh my God, like we're excited, but that almost happened too fast. And we went to Dr. Surden and he said, I don't know, something isn't looking right. I'm not sure that this is going to be a viable pregnancy. And Mikey and I looked at each other, high-fived, and said, perfect, let's go out and get a martini and have, a fun dinner tonight.
Oh,
The
best
next
news
day,
ever.
The next day was Thanksgiving. We were at a friend's house, and everyone had to go around the table and say what they were thankful for. And we said that we're thankful for the miscarriage
Oh
that
my
we're
God.
right now.
Oh,
And so, again, we use humor, and it was just a moment that we were like, that happened way too fast, and we're actually not ready yet. And so we waited a few months, and a few months later, actually started to try. And thankfully, again, we got pregnant again quickly, and everything went smoothly from there.
it's really interesting. I've had patients at the same time because we do a lot of fertility work. I've had patients literally at the same time struggling really hard with the fact that they're not pregnant and they're trying to be. And on the other side of the coin, struggling with the fact that they were pregnant and didn't want to be. And it's sort of like both of them are really challenging.
For
So,
sure.
and I think anybody who has one can see the struggle for the other one, but also kind of wants what they have. So it's really interesting. Everybody's struggle is personal and real. And at that point, you didn't want to be pregnant, so it's good news for you.
Yep.
But then you did want to be pregnant, so it was good news again.
Yep.
And now, when you have an eating disorder, when you lose so much weight that you lose your period, you're obviously very focused on your body and what you look like. And then you did a lot of therapeutics and healing and improving your relationship with food and nutrition and overall health. But still, I mean, it's a piece of you, the fabric of your life is this eating disorder and hyper focus on how you look. Pregnancy changes your body a lot in kind of the opposite direction if you're focused on certain parts. How was that for you?
That's a good question. And I think that I was really curious to see how it would feel emotionally for my body to change so much. And I think because, again, I had done so much work around my relationship with food and my body. And, I love the human body and want to experience everything that it's capable of doing. And so, thankfully, because of my recovery and my journey, when my body changed so much while I was pregnant, it was something that was amazing and beautiful and not something that I had a hard time with the way that I looked. Having said that, anytime that I stepped on a scale, that was really difficult for me to see a number that felt so high. And I always tell people not to weigh themselves. And it was just a really good reminder to myself that, hey, I can trust my body. I know that I'm eating appropriately. I know that I'm moving appropriately. I know that weight gain is really normal right now. And to step on a scale and see the exact number isn't something that was helping me at all. It was actually getting in my head and making me worried. And so at the beginning of my pregnancy, I would weigh myself before a doctor appointment because I would rather weigh myself than be weighed there. And, they say, hey, you should gain, a certain number of weight in your first trimester. I try not to use specific numbers. And when I saw that I had gained more than that in the first trimester, I really started to kind of spin out. And my eating disorder brain, which is typically very quiet, started to kind of talk. And it was a really good moment for me to speak back to it and say, hey, the same principles that I work on and teach with my clients are the things that I want to implement now. And not weighing myself was something that was really important for me to continue to have a quiet pregnancy around food in my body.
Did you have a concern at any point because you'd step on the scale and see the number climb that it would affect how you eat in a negative way? Like, oh, I don't want to keep growing.
No. So because I really am fully recovered, I knew, that behaviorally nothing was going to change. And truly, I eat when I'm hungry and stop when I'm full and continued to do that throughout my pregnancy. So it was just kind of reinforcing, like having a more positive conversation in my head to say, hey, you can trust your behaviors. And if you're eating normally and moving normally, nothing crazy is going to happen on the scale. And so, even though the weight is going to go up, because that's what happens when you're growing another human, it's not going to be anything that is inappropriate because nothing I'm doing in terms of input or output is too little or too much.
I'm going to revisit this line of questioning when we get to your postpartum, but two things. Number one, I think average weight gain during a pregnancy is 25 to 35 pounds. And when we were pregnant with our first, my son, I only gained 20 pounds, so I felt pretty good about it. I'm still trying to work it off. Anyway, he's 20. He's 20 years old. You gave birth, and I don't know, at any point before you got pregnant, during your pregnancy, did you think about the birth process and how you wanted your setting to be, how you wanted the baby to come out of you?
So I didn't make a formal birth plan because I wanted to, like everything I do in life, I listen to my body and I want to show up and see how I feel. Like, I don't know what I'm going to order for dinner tomorrow when we go out to dinner because I'm going to get there and see what I'm in the mood for. And so the same thing with my pregnancy, labor, and delivery is that I didn't know if I would want an epidural. I didn't know what I wanted exactly because I didn't know how I was going to feel on that day, in that moment, etc. So I was really kind of open to whatever happened. But then when things got closer and I realized that the baby, my son Howie, was facing sunny side up, which I didn't even know what that meant. In that moment, I realized that I was really connected to having a vaginal birth. And part of me was feeling really sad and scared that I was going to need to have a C-section.
Yeah, sunny side up, I usually think of it in relation to eggs, but it also, I guess, is street lingo for the baby not being in the ideal rotation for birth, where the back of their skull, the hard part of their skull, is against your spine instead of being against the soft part of your belly. So it's like their hard skull against your hard spine, which is not a great physics mechanic for the baby to kind of rotate and come down and come out smoothly. Okay, so no doula.
And it was at that point in my pregnancy when I found that out that you and I had met previously, but I hadn't been seeing you regularly. And it was when I found out that Howie was sunny side up that I called you. And again, like my anxiety got so high that I put together this whole team of people because we need to turn my baby.
You had a mission.
I had a mission. And it was at that point that I started to see you regularly until the end of my pregnancy.
Yes, so I remember like anxiety building for you at
Yep.
the end. You had a lot of questions, you were thinking things through, you're looking at options. I remember you being anxious, but not in a dysfunctional way, almost like a driving way.
Yeah, it was so interesting because toward the end, I was seeing you regularly, and you always made me laugh because you would come in and say, "Okay, what are we going to worry about today?"
That's true. Yeah.
And I always had a new thing to worry about. And each week, like that week that I worried about him being sunny side up, the next week I kind of landed in this space of saying, hey, we might not be able to turn the baby, and that's okay. Like, I learned so much about letting go and about continuing to engage in a more positive self-talk dialogue throughout my pregnancy to really kind of make peace with, hey, I don't have complete control over what type of labor and delivery I'm going to have. If the baby turns and becomes in the, different position. And so each week that I did have a new anxiety, it became my work to kind of use my resources, my team, my husband, and kind of reframe it so that I felt more okay with it.
It was, again, it was sort of like acute anxiety because you have such a good sense of humor about it. Like you're worried, but, and I think, again, comedy is medicine. When you're worried, but you can laugh at it, it kind of puts things a little bit more in perspective. Like, yes, I am worried about that, but if I zoom out, I'm doing just fine. I just
Yeah.
have this thing I'd like to go a different way than it's going right now.
Exactly. And it's funny because when Howie was sunny side up, I came to you and I was like, well, do I need a doula? And, the first thing you said is, well, elephants don't have doulas.
True, not that I can tell. I've watched quite a few elephant births.
And that really made me laugh. But what you also said was, hey, if you weren't going to get a doula before this, there's no need for you to get a doula now. So it was just really helpful to have a couple people in my corner who I appreciate their input and their sense of humor and their knowledge base for me to only have a couple people to ask and have my own opinion. Because when I ask too many people, what should I do? Should I get a doula? Should I do this? Should I do that? It just again becomes loud and confusing.
Yeah. Too much noise. And what it really does is it blocks out the smartest voice in the room, which is that deep inner wisdom that's hardwired inside you.
Exactly.
All right, sunny side up, baby. We opted to not have a doula, and we're a little worried, but we're laughing our way out of it. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll find out how your birth went. All right, welcome back. We're talking to Brooke, and I'm going to start changing how I answer the door, I think. Because I think, yeah, people come in my neighborhood bothering with all sorts of stuff. I think I could chase them away. Okay, so sunny side up, baby. How does birth start?
You suggested that I see the acupuncturist, Jason, in your office because that might be a way for him to help me dilate. And he was such a nice guy. And again, it was, hey, Jason, it's your job to make sure I dilate. And I understand that that's not the truth, but here I am just super anxious and trying anything I can to make this thing happen because I thought that if I was dilated, I would have an easier labor and delivery. And so I hit my 40 weeks. In my head, I said I would be comfortable going to 41 weeks. I went to Dr. Surden and I said, okay, I want to be induced at 41 weeks. And he said, I'm actually going to a Kings game that day. And I said, okay, then I will do it the day before. He's like, well, I'm actually getting a colonic that, or not a colonic, a
Colonoscopy?
colonoscopy
Oh,
that day. Whatever it was, because of his schedule, we had to plan an induction for 40 weeks and 3 days.
I like
And
how refreshingly honest he is about it too.
I like it too because I love, when someone says, actually, I'm busy on those days. And it just made it easier for me to say, hey, then this is your option, Brooke. If you want your doctor to deliver you, then you have to be plan an induction, for 40 and a half weeks. And again, it was just another opportunity to relinquish control and, say, hey, it's okay that this is how it's going to go. And I was so scared of being induced without being dilated. And I went in and got a sweep and nothing happened. And a few days later, I went in and started the induction process. So I did the balloon.
Oh, I love balloons.
Yeah.
What did the balloon induction feel like?
So I was anxious about it because when I asked people, people said it was super painful. And went into Dr. Surden's office on a Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. and they insert the balloon in the office. And because I actually did dilate, I was dilated 1 centimeter.
Hey, only nine to go.
Exactly. And so I don't know if that made the balloon less painful, but for me, it didn't bother me at all. And so the balloon was inserted, and then you get to go home and you get to labor at home until the balloon gets to be a certain size. So went back home with my husband and we just kind of laid in bed and hung out, ate a really good breakfast, made a really good lunch because I knew I had, a big day of strenuous activity ahead of me. And once the balloon had gotten big enough, we returned to Dr. Surden's office. He pulled the balloon out, and that's when you're dilated to 4 or 5 centimeters and when more active labor begins.
It's really cool
And
that this is all outside the hospital.
it was so nice because you get to be at home. Like we laid in bed, we hung out, and it was
I'm
really.
just telling you, that's atypical. It's not how it's usually done.
So I think that it might be a newer option because I have friends that for their first baby a couple of years ago weren't able to do that, and now they were able to do that for their second kid. So it was a really nice option that I would recommend because it reduces the amount of time that you're in the hospital and you get to be at home.
Yeah. And then before I said only 9 centimeters to go, but now you're only like 5 centimeters to go. And you're still not
Exactly.
in the hospital.
Exactly. So we left Dr. Surden's office, ran into one of our best friends who had a baby 4 weeks after me. She also sees Dr. Surden, and they were randomly in the waiting room. So it was fun to get to see our friends. And then from there, we went right over to the hospital and admitted to labor and delivery. And so once I admitted, I kind of knew that I didn't want the day. It had been a really nice day so far, and I didn't want it to start being grueling and really different. And so when I got there, I asked for an epidural right away. It takes a little bit of time for the anesthesiologist to come and do the epidural. And so by the time he came and gave me the epidural, I was maybe 6 centimeters dilated.
Only four
Um,
to go.
exactly. And the epidural for me, again, was not painful. It was fine. And yeah, from there, Dr. Surden came a couple hours later. He broke my water. And again, that's when more active labor, happened, but I didn't feel anything from the epidural. And because I'm someone that always likes to push the limit, they give this little button that you can give yourself more epidural. And I was like, ooh, I want to give myself a little more of this. And that's actually my one regret of my labor and delivery is that I wanted to just kind of mess with it and see what a little bit more felt like. And when I took more and felt literally nothing in the lower half of my body and couldn't, like, when they would come and ask you to lift your hips to switch out paper underneath, that I couldn't move anything. And so I think that made me feel a little scared and a little nauseous, maybe from taking more medication. So I did vomit. I did feel a little uncomfortable and anxious, but in terms of pain, I felt nothing. And then at around 12:30 in the AM, Dr. Surden came back and said, "All right, it's time." And it was me and my husband, Michael, and a nurse and Dr. Surden sitting at the foot of the bed. It was a dimly lit room, and at 1:30 in the morning, that's when I was pushing. And it was funny because when Dr. Surden came into the room, he told me that, hey, when you have a contraction, that's when you're going to push, and you're going to push each contraction for 10 seconds 3 times. And because my husband and I are gym people, Mikey said, all right, we're back in the gym, 3 sets of 10. So every contraction, I need 3 sets of 10. And it was so funny because when Dr. Surden was there, I would do 3 sets of 10. And the second he would leave the room and it was just me, Mikey, and the nurse, I would do 3 sets of 8.
Oh, that's okay. So just like the gym when my trainer's not looking.
Yeah, just like the gym when my trainer's not looking, I'll shave off a little bit. So we were laughing and it was cute. And I also kind of like pictured like roaring the baby out of me, that I was picturing myself getting to scream and roar and make noise. And Dr. Surden said that you lose too much power when you kind of open your mouth and scream. And he suggested keeping my mouth closed when I pushed. So it was interesting because it was just different than what I thought. But I pushed for an hour and the baby, Howie, came out. And
Oh,
yeah, and it was amazing.
that
And
never gets old, that
right,
that
it was
moment.
amazing. And he was a full cone head. And I was so nervous that his head was so deformed. And they put you right on your chest and you don't take the baby off of you for an hour. So
The
I wasn't
golden hour.
Yes, I wasn't able to see what he really looked like in that time, but I held him and kind of worried, like, uh-oh, what does his head shape look like? And the first thing that Howie did when they put him on my chest is he pooped all over me.
He felt it out.
Exactly. And that just made me laugh and love him right away too. And so it was a special time.
So did the baby turn from that sunny side up at some point?
He turned to be sideways, but never fully flipped to be upside down or whatever the term.
Yeah, anterior. Okay, so somewhere in between.
Yes.
So with all the things that you were anxious about, it turned out pretty well.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about postpartum or the healing after you gave birth and then postpartum. And here's all the questions in my mind. What was the immediate after healing like? What was the transition to motherhood like on a physical and emotional level? And then to bring things full circle, your body recovery.
Sure. So I couldn't believe that it was the after period that was the hardest on my body and physically. That after I gave birth for the next, week, I couldn't believe how difficult it was to get out of bed, to sit down. There was just a lot of discomfort and pain. And I really, really took it easy. I maybe went on a walk around the block 4 or 5 days after, but didn't really do much of anything for the first couple weeks. And I think I was preparing myself so much for the labor and delivery that I didn't think about what it was going to be like afterward. And I didn't know how long you bleed for afterward. And so that surprised me as well. And I also didn't know that, if you want to breastfeed, which I did, that starts right away. And so that was an interesting learning curve as well.
You mean
I
like you were like, you know what, I just been through a lot. Talk to me on Tuesday.
Exactly. And
Okay.
they gave me Howie and they're like, all right, now he needs to latch in the hospital. And I was like, I
Go,
kind of
go,
want,
go.
yeah, I was like, I kind of want to take a nap. Like, can we do this in a couple hours? No. And so I think yeah, that I worried so much about getting to the labor and delivery part, and I didn't think about the after part. We were lucky that we had a baby nurse who was staying with us, and she really was helpful and supportive. So it was amazing because when Howie came, he just brought this joy to our home that I don't know that we ever knew was missing. So his name is Howard. My husband's dad passed away when he was 15, and his name was Howard. And we named our baby Howard for my husband's dad, for my father-in-law. And having lost his dad at such a young age is something that has always been a dark cloud over my husband's life and perspective. And when baby Howie came, he has just been this beautiful source of light and life that we didn't know was missing from our home. And so, ever since he's been here, there has been joy and laughter and love that has been next level. And so it's just been this amazing and beautiful time in our family and in our life.
Wow. You're such a vivid storyteller that I actually feel, the emotion coming into me, the fullness. And it could be also because I have a similar story. My father passed away when I was a teenager, and it was actually the night after Hanukkah. So the last day of Hanukkah, you light the full menorah with all the candles, and especially if you have multiple people lighting, it's such a light in the darkness moment because it's always in December. It's the short days, dark days of winter. And, I was in college at the time, so we had a lot of people lighting candles all together, and it was such a brightness. And the next day, my father suddenly passed away, and it was such a darkness. And I feel like the contrast made it so much darker. And it wasn't until my son was born, who's named after my father as well, that I felt that light kind of come back on. A lot of happy things happened for me in life, and I moved on and lived life in all the ways. But there was always this darkness behind the scenes that once my son came, really lit up again. And every time I see him, I still see it and feel it. And as you're talking about it with your husband, it reminds me of that same thing. so beautiful to,
Really.
fill the void, so to speak, in your
And
heart.
really, really special.
All right, so the former person who struggled with eating disorder, lifelong nutritionist, it's one thing to be growing a baby and to sort of look at your body and see it grow and feel like, okay, but this is because there's a baby inside. I'm doing this incredible work. On the other side, sometimes it's a harder struggle because now there's no baby and your body's not back how it used to be. What was that transition like for you?
Yeah, so I'm still going through that transition. And I think, that since giving birth, Howie's going to be 5 months this week.
Oh, wow. Goes
I know.
fast.
I know. And so since he's been born, I have been breastfeeding or pumping. And I know that nutrition needs, hunger is increased. And so I have not changed anything about my diet. I'm exercising regularly because that's what I always do. And I am not weighing myself. I am a little bit bigger than I typically am right now. And I think that I've been totally fine with it because I just had a baby. But something just shifted around 4 months where I said, up until then, it was like, oh, you're fine because you just had a baby. And then it was like at 4 months, well, now you didn't just have a baby. So now it's not fine that you're still a little bit bigger than you usually are. And again, that was an opportunity for me to really reframe that and say, there's no yes, there's 1 month difference between 3 months and 4 months, but there's no difference between 3 months and 4 months. You still just had a baby. You're still, pumping. You're still, there's a lot of hormonal changes and body changes that are still going on. And it's going to take more time, especially because I'm not actively working on changing my body. I'm just listening to my body in terms of eating and movement, and it's going to take time. And so that's kind of where I'm at now.
It's really wonderful for you to share so openly, like your thoughts and your emotions and how it feels to go through it. If you zoom out a little bit, it took 9 months to change one way, and it's pretty normal for it to take 9 months to change the other way. And it's nice that you're able to feel yourself. It sounds like you feel yourself getting anxious about it and then give yourself grace. And again, zoom out and see the bigger picture. So I'm sure it's not the easiest journey, but I think by you talking about it, it helps other people kind of process. And that's what you do for a career. So let me say this. I really love hanging out with you. I was honored and blessed to work with you during your pregnancy. I learned from you then. I laughed with you then. And I'm learning from you now. And I'm really happy that you came to share some of what you have to offer with our audience as well.
Well, thank you
Uh,
for having me and inviting me. And really, you helped me so much during my pregnancy.
I just every night go to sleep praying that you're going to have another baby in the not too distant future because the frequency of hanging out with you right now is way too low. Brooke, where can we find you online?
My website is www.brookeglazer.com. I embarrassingly don't have an active professional social media account, but you can go to my website and my email and phone number are there.
BrookeGlazer.com. I will see you there. Thank you again for joining me, and to everyone tuning in. If you enjoyed this conversation or learned from it, please share it with someone else who might benefit. Then go and leave us a 5-star review in your app and check out our other brand new podcast, One Way or a Mother, along with a full library of streaming content for new and expecting parents on Informed Pregnancy Plus. You can find it all at informedpregnancy.com.
Doctor, doctor, give me the news. I got a